Good afternoon. This is Senator Young doing our Monday Facebook. Glad to be here again. As usual, if you are tuned in and have any questions, try to send them to us and we'll try to respond to them. I guess I want to start off by saying that unfortunately, Senator Wayne Norman from Cecil and Harford County unexpectedly passed away this weekend. Senator Norman was a conservative Republican from that area, was a very nice guy, very dedicated, represented his area well, and is certainly going to be missed in the Senate. So just like to send their best wishes and prayers out to his family, and we're certainly going to miss him in the legislature. We are down to 5 weeks left in the session, moving ahead rapidly. A lot of the bigger bills have not come to the floor yet, so we're going to have some long debates on that. But I think I will start off this week. We have a few questions that have come in, and let's deal with those questions first. It said, you said your Small Business Fairness Act would create $50 million in revenue to pay for tuition assistance with the money left over. Can you put some of that money towards homelessness and affordable housing programs? Well, first off, it appears that the community college bill they're passing, if you're not in leadership down there, it happens quite a bit. Someone puts a bill in, like I did for tuition-free community college and VOTEC certificates a few years ago, but it doesn't pass, and then someone in leadership usually puts another bill in, and they tend to pass their bill. Senator Pinsky has a bill in, and I co-sponsored his bill as he co-sponsored mine. Appears that they're going to move forward with his bill, and I'm naturally would have loved to seen my bill pass, but the whole reason for putting it in was to achieve free tuition and free tuition for both community colleges and certificates, and it appears that we're going to get a program in and through which will cost $30 million. The Budget and Tax Committee has decided to take that from the general fund. For some reason, the bill I had in, which I called the Small Business Fairness Act, which is combined reporting on retail and restaurants, isn't going to get a vote again. I cannot explain that. It makes no sense to me. I think it's frankly stupid and irresponsible. These large corporations, from Sears to Target to Walmart to any big company with their corporate headquarters out of Maryland, and the same with the restaurant chains, transfer their money back to their home states and pay the taxes there rather than here. 26 other states have passed combined reporting. It's not a Republican Democratic issue. Blue states such as New York and California have passed it, but red states such as Arizona and Texas have also passed combined reporting. So we're letting $50 million lay on the table that we could have here to support the program I had in, or homelessness or whatever, and we just don't seem willing, not being on that committee and not ever hearing an explanation for it, other than the chamber opposes it, though I thought the chamber was here to support Maryland businesses. They're supporting the big chains and not the Maryland small businesses. So it appears once again that bill's going to go into the drawer in committee and never come out for a vote. So yes, that money or some of that money could have been used for homelessness and affordable housing programs, but it's not going to be used at all. It's just money that would not have cost a Marylander 1 cent, and we're letting it lay on the table. Now, speaking of homelessness, I have another bill in called Slots for Homeless Veterans. The fraternal clubs, the Owls, the Eagles, the Moose, the Orioles, on and on, have won at 5 slot machines, just as the Veterans Clubs have. They call them instant lottery, but they're slot machines with a ticket that shoots out. That would have produced quite a bit of money. It would have helped coordinate veterans programs, and one of the managers at the housing department said it would have gone a long way to deal with homeless veterans. It would have helped solve that problem totally. That bill too, because of leadership appears, I'm going to continue to try to work it, but right now it looks like that's going to stay in the drawer and not get a vote. So, I'm disappointed in those things. I worked with the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. I worked with the Secretary of Housing. I worked with the lottery department. I worked with the governor's office. I worked with all the fraternal clubs. There's 47 senators. I got 36 of the senators to co-sponsor it. Most of those that didn't had nothing against the program except they're anti-gambling people, which I respect. But I'm counting myself 37 to 47 senators supporting it. And it appears it's going to lay in the drawer, though I'm still going to attempt to see if we can't get that up for a vote. Another question I received was, that dealt with the first and third question. It said the third question was, I see you have a homeless veterans bill, and it hadn't passed. And I think I just explained that. I don't think there's any good reason it shouldn't pass, but we'll see what happens. Then another question I received was, have you ever and do you plan to take money from the National Rifle Association? I have never gotten money from the National Rifle Association. They give me an F every year because I don't support their legislation, nor will I ever take money from them. We have a serious problem in this country. I have no desire, nor do I hear of anyone else who has any desire to take away a hunter's gun or to keep someone from having a pistol if they choose to in their house for self-protection. Interesting fact is that at this time in history, we have the highest percentage of people in the country that do not own guns. 65% of our population does not own a gun. Those that do, many of them have arsenals, multiple guns. During the last gun legislation, and we do have among the strongest gun legislation in the country here in Maryland, not that we can't continue to improve it, but I had 2 hunters come into my office who were opposing the legislation. And I asked the one, I said, do you really need a semi-automatic weapon to go deer hunting? And he paused for a long time and he said, I can bring a deer down with 1 bullet. There are rare occasions it takes 2, but if it takes more than that, I shouldn't be out there. So the answer is hunters don't need it. Those rifles are designed for killing. Now, again, I don't have a problem with them existing. If they're locked up at a range and people go to that range and want to shoot for practice and the rifle stays there. Otherwise, I don't think they belong out in the community, and I still stand by that. I really appreciate what Dick's Sporting Good has done. I think we've turned a very small corner in terms of getting more national and more responsible gun legislation, but we still have a long way way to go. If you read the Second Amendment, I think I've looked, I haven't found it anywhere else. It's the only place in the Constitution that has the word regulated in it, a well-regulated militia. And that's what the Second Amendment was about. At that time, we had no police forces and we had no standing army. They wanted everyone to have their musket, and in case they were needed, they could be called to duty, and they had their own guns. That's not the case today. So in particular, no one else needs military guns of any kind. I hope the ban for these bum stocks passes through. And, we probably will be looking at a few other things of being able to take guns away from abusers and people declared to have mental problems and held until those issues can be addressed. But that's where I stand on the National Rifle Association, and I know it cost me a lot of votes with the National Rifle Association, and that's okay. I am there to try to work for, I think, the best interest of all, and I think it's the best interest of all that we do something about this madness of school shootings and things around the country. And I do not think arming teachers is a solution, and most teachers think that's not a solution too. And it's not as simple as saying, okay, we're going to have an armed guard at every school, because I understand the school in Florida had one and it prevented nothing. So we need to look at mental health issues, what kinds should be on the streets, and how to better protect our schools. This so far in the legislature, we've overridden the governor's veto of earned sick leave. I believe that everyone should have a few days of sick leave. The max they can earn under the program that we passed is 5 days a year. I don't know about everyone else. I don't want the cook or a waitress in my restaurant when I'm eating sneezing over my food, passing germs around. I don't want a lot of people like that doing it. I don't want a low income person to have to choose between losing their job and taking a day off to take care of a sick child. I think it's only fair that people should have sick leave, and I voted to override the veto on that. Another issue that's coming up, and I don't know how it's moving this year, that's the fight for 15. And I know two of my opponents in this race, one in the primary and one in the general, both didn't support raising the minimum wage to $10.10, and we're talking about phasing it into 15. I'm very much in support of getting it to 15 as fast as possible. That still is not a livable wage. I think it is a shame and a sin in this country that people work a full-time job and cannot make enough money to have a place to live, some kind of vehicle to get them to work, enough food to eat, something for their children, and to try to have insurance. And $15 really doesn't even get you there for that. So I will support that if it gets up this year. With the committee system in the legislature, we don't get to vote on it unless it comes out of committee, and that's not in my committee. I certainly intend to vote for it if it gets to the floor. But the corporate welfare of what we have now with these people that don't work, in hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions across the country, that don't get paid enough to live, and then we end up giving them food stamps and housing certificates and things like that. It's corporate welfare. The companies they're working for should be paying them a livable wage. And somebody said that hurts small business. Well, small business and everybody else is paying taxes to support these people through social welfare. And I just feel, again, anybody that works ought to make a livable wage. I don't even like talking minimum wage. It should be a livable wage. Another thing we did this year was strip the rights of rape victims from their children. In this state, in the past, someone could rape a woman, and then when she had the baby, they asked for parental rights, which makes the mother go back and have to deal with the man who raped her. If being raped wasn't traumatic enough, now for 18 years or whatever with parental rights, she's having to deal with that rapist again. So we did strip those parental rights. One thing that I think went a little too far on, and I understand how this works sometimes, we had to do it to pass it, but I hope we come back and correct it. If they take away the parental rights, the rapist doesn't have any responsibility for child support, because people said, well, the mother still doesn't want to face the rapist. But there are ways to, if the mother wants the child support, to have it collected by the courts or an agency, and then have them pay the mother so she doesn't have to deal with the rapist. I would hope in the future we would restore that right for a mother to seek those rights. Well, we've taken steps to protect Marylanders from the federal tax hike. We've proposed legislation to, under the federal tax hike, we had our itemized deductions tied to the federal itemized deductions. So when the feds eliminated them, we automatically eliminated them. We're passing legislation to let Marylanders itemize again on Maryland taxes if they can. So we're taking a number of steps to buffer and take away the hurt to Marylanders caused by that GOP tax cut. We're having to deal with a lot of things passed down. The biggest, and we still don't know where it's gone yet, but healthcare. And we're trying to monitor what's happening there and to ensure Marylanders that they still have can still deal with the health issues. One other thing, we have proposed legislation. The Kirwan report's coming back in. It shows Maryland is slipping in education, and they're talking about a multi-billion-dollar funding gap to provide the kind of education that we should provide in Maryland. One of the bills that we have put in is to take all the money from the casinos and direct it to education. That was the original intent. Somewhere along the way, $500 million a year got diverted elsewhere. So we're going to direct that money back towards education to help with the recommendations of the Kirwan report, which wants to get us back on the top of education, both in Maryland and worldwide. I think there are a number of areas, like one I spoke about previously, the $50 million from combined reporting. If the community colleges are being dealt with elsewhere, let's take that $50 million and turn it towards education. There's much we can do to improve that situation. My bills and local bills, all the local alcohol bills, or 3 of the 4 have passed. We have one more that has amendments, and that should probably pass this week. I have another bill in to allow soju and shochu, which I'm sure most of you don't know what it is. It's a Korean and Japanese alcohol, which they drink like wine, and it's still at wine stores to sell that. We have one of the largest Korean populations in the country. Among my other bills, unfortunately, they defeated the one to phase out taxes on seniors over 65 making less than $75,000 a year. The community college bill is being passed through another bill. I've told you about the combined reporting bill and the slots bill. We did get one in which the governor jumped on the bandwagon for, to allow kids to have sunscreen in school. We have a patient bill of rights bill in, and the hospitals are fighting that. So I don't know if that's going anywhere, but we're still working all the bills. I have a bill in for $500,000 worth of tax credits for the local film industry. We've given away $60 million to Hollywood productions that have come in here to make films. And the studies show they spend most of that money in fast food restaurants, which under not having combined reporting, the profits go back out of the state. They do create some business and some jobs. But we have a film industry in Maryland that's growing rapidly. It's strong here in Frederick, it's strong in Baltimore, there's areas in Montgomery County, all over the state. We have local filmmakers directing, producing, wanting to make their movies here, but they're going out of state because they get better benefits there. And just that small amount of money would produce jobs right here with Maryland residents, not someone brought in from New York or Hollywood or Atlanta, which now has a big film community. Again, as I present that bill, the whole committee sits there and nods their head. The chairman of the committee says it's a good bill, but they don't want it. And I haven't figured out who they is. So I'm trying to investigate that. I think it's a small cost bill that will more than pay for itself through the jobs created here, and I've been unable to get that through. There are a lot more issues. There's a comprehensive crime bill coming through that we're working on. So the next few weeks, I'll have a lot more to talk about with a lot of the bills that are starting to roll in now. So if I have no questions today, we will post this on Facebook as we usually do. Wherever this video appears, it is captioned now for the deaf. So I thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.